Hi, welcome to Dogman Teepee Hunting. And if you're listening to this, it'll be on the Interdimensional Voyagers podcast. Nice to see you again, and thank you for joining us. Today, I've got a great interview. I've got a chap on from the States. His name is Scott Varden. He's a lifelong experiencer, and he would like to come on to share some of his absolutely incredible accounts. It's all pertaining to do with ET, you guessed it, extraterrestrials, UFOs. So I shall bring him on right this minute. Hi, Scott.
Good morning, my time, I guess. No, actually, it's almost 1:30, so good afternoon, my time.
A very good afternoon. Yeah, it's here. It is. Let's have a look. 18:21 hours. So it is still sort of like early evening for us at the moment. But thank you for joining. I appreciate that.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Yeah. Scott, to get underway, because I know you've got a lot of information that you would like to share. Now, can I ask a little bit about your past history, namely your military service for a start, because that gives people an idea of your standing.
Sure. Well, let's start off. In 1969, I was working undercover for New York State Police narcotics. It resulted in some very major busts. In fact, the largest drug bust in the history of the United States on the East Coast for DEA was Robert Francis Hearn's family barn in Highgate, Vermont. The story how I got that that's a show in itself. But in any event, I recovered, and to be honest with you, I feel to be the luckiest man in the world because if the GE Vulcan gun factory had not been in Burlington, Vermont, where was the third hospital I was medevac to, I coded 3 times before I got on the table. I took one in the head right here. It went behind my left eye.
Okay.
They couldn't get it out for a long time. In any event, I took two in a gut. I was a mess.
Hmm.
I can remember they picked up my mother who worked for the government, the VA, and the ambulance. And I'm in and out of it naturally. And my mother was basically laying over my lower body, crying. You know what I mean? And so Saranac Lake only drugged me up and made sure that the ferry was waiting for me to go to UVM, where the big surgeons were. When I arrived there, the only thing I can remember was being on the table with this old guy, all in his gear, with holding my head, saying, "Oh my God, I haven't seen a wound like that in a long time." And then I don't know how many weeks it was or anything, but when I woke up, propped up on my bed, with IVs in both arms and drains in my nose, he has got my head in his hands looking at my face, and he said, "You're a lucky man." And so I basically didn't know where I was or what I was doing. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "Son, I'm Dr. Charles Barney, Israeli Mossad Major." And of course, I said, "Really? Why are you here?" He said, "I'm going to tell you why, son." He said, "The Russians gave those type of weapons, the GE Vulcan Country Factory, the Vulcan cannons, electronic cannons. The Russians gave them to the Egyptians on track vehicles. He said it tore the crap out of our planes. So we needed them. We came, got a license from GE. We were allowed to send our engineers to learn how to make them at home. Our protective detail." And he said, "You're a lucky man because, Scott, they told us to send their best repairmen." I did every burn case in the 67 war. What you're looking at here
Hmm.
is all grafts, both bones and flesh. Right here that they couldn't do because I would have lost the eye.
Okay.
A tiny scar.
Right.
Okay,
Just to right. Can I ask? He was from
yeah,
Mossad, yeah, which is the Israeli Secret Service.
yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Right. So,
So, so a
what's
month
that? What?
later, a month
No,
later,
no.
he
What I'm
walked.
asking. Scott,
Yeah,
what's that? What position did you hold within the military at that time?
none. I had to recover. I had multiple surgeries. I got another degree, and then in 1967, with my father being the first sergeant, the very first MASH unit, my uncle Swede was CIA. I was told it's time to go into service. It's a family thing.
Mm,
So I did. I was captain of my training company at Fort Leonard Wood, cold January. February, I was teaching the at the academy in Anniston, Alabama, until another guy that my dad knew said you're being transferred to Fort Ord, California, to work for a guy you used to know. He's a three-star, and it's about cleaning up the troops coming out of Vietnam. So I took time to go out there and flew the first wife and kid home. And I had never been out west, and so I got in early. I had a couple days left. I signed in at 2:30 in the morning, and I was woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning and told that the first sergeant wanted to see me. Of course, I didn't like it because I was on vacation, but I did. And it was another person that we used to know. He used to be in charge of physical therapy at Sunmount. I believe he was an Olympic volleyball player, African American, had a beautiful wife, friends with mom and dad.
mm.
And so he says, I was also Army racquetball champ. And he says, Scott, you got your racquetball stuff with you? I said, yes, sir, it's in the car. He said, well, get it, get your stuff on. There's someone waiting at the post gym. And of course, I go up there, and it's a three-star that I've known since a kid. And he explains to me what my assignments are. And this is the exact words. The governor of Hawaii called our president and said, get your effing troops out of my state. The crime rate went through the roof. And it did. I don't know if you know what happened in our country, but back then during Vietnam, if you were black, Puerto Rican, or a poor inner city guy, and you got in any trouble at all, your choices were limited to two: jail or join the service.
Mm.
So they spent the time in Vietnam, and when they were brought back to, they have a thing about readjusting to society. They were in Hawaii, and the crime rate did go up the roof. So he said, your job is to use your computer skills. I'll give you your staff. We need to know why they got put in the military, and we have to match up if they do, are on these bases where we have this problem. Then you send the reports to CID, and they take care of it. And I said, okay, sir, I understand. He said, we got a meeting at 2 o'clock. He said, first you have to qualify with your weapon. I said, okay, sir. He said, let's go into court. So we went into court and played. He said, oh, God. He says, God, I forgot to tell you. He said, I got a friend that you're going to teach too. I said, really? I prefer not to teach cutthroat, but if you want to, it's up to you. I said, who's your
Mm.
friend? He said, you got a problem with the Mayor Carmel, Clint Eastwood? I said, no, sir, I don't.
Sorry,
So I
say that
go,
again. Say that again. Who?
he said to me, I said, who is your friend?
Mm.
He said, you got a problem with the Mayor of Carmel, Clint Eastwood? I said, certainly not, sir.
How old was
So,
Clint Eastwood then?
oh, he was younger. I was 25 years old then.
Right.
Now,
Okay. So
okay,
You had Clint Eastwood. You were teaching Clint Eastwood to deal with with the returning troops from Vietnam
no,
who,
no, no, no. I was Army racquetball champ.
yeah.
He said, your other job is to teach me and my best friend to play like you do.
Oh, I see. A
Yeah,
racquetball. Okay, got you.
yeah.
Okay.
So in any event, things, progressed. We had our meeting. He gave me the staff. We did our thing, and all I had to do is teach them at 6 o'clock in the morning till probably 7:30. Review my reports from the staff, forward them to where they had to go, and then go to the beach. I
Okay.
mean, yeah.
Right.
So
Can we go
so
back? Scott,
yep.
what position did you hold within the military?
Well, then I was military police special forces.
Military,
And
military. So you were MP Special Forces.
yeah, it's called 95 B10. But then
Okay.
one day in the court, because I thought he was playing with me like he always did, he got hit because he made the wrong move, and
Mm,
it must have hurt. And so he gets up, and I thought he was kidding with me. He said something I don't want to repeat, but he said, I'm going to transfer you now. I thought it was a joke until I said something to him, and he said, You want me to call your father? I said, No, sir, I don't. What are you talking about? He said, You got to go to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And I said to him, Are you kidding me, sir? I said, That's close to home. And I said, I have family near there. Actually, yeah, my Aunt Selma's a nurse and her husband's a cop. I
mm.
can stay with them. I can get my billeting. I go home, get the wife and kid, move our stuff down, and fine. And that's the future of my degrees. So I thank you very much.
Okay.
And then
Right. So,
but wait a
so
minute, wait a minute. He says
yeah.
to me, You report to the provost marshal, he'll tell you where to go.
Uh-huh.
So I had 3 days to get there. When I do, I report to this guy named Frank Chirico. He was a PM. And then he said, Son, this man's going to take you to your new office. I'm okay. He takes me down the hall through 2 rooms to the special unit, and I go in. The secretary sitting there was my Aunt Thelma, the nurse, bestest friend. The station chief to the CIA, Len Chernosky.
Mm.
So she says to me, Scott, she said, we've been waiting for you. She says, Mr. Chernosky's in his office. Just go in. I go in, not knowing what I'm up to, and he sits me down and he said, Son, your Aunt Thelma retired. Really? I said, I didn't know that. He said, Scott, the next night she took the job of being Crazy Joe Bonanno's mother's night nurse. And yet, as you knew Marion was her best friend and neighbor.
Mm.
He said, We need you to represent our interest with the mafia. Now, here I am, 25 years old.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
Can I
okay.
can I ask you just get a word in? Hang on. Let me get a word in.
Yeah.
Right now, why does it surprise you? Why did they give a position to a MP, a military police personnel, a position like that? Because MPs usually they're kind of like in the forces. They are guard duty, perimeter patrol. If there's any problems with civilians in the neighborhood, it'll be the MPs which are called in if it is military personnel which has caused the problems. They're kind of like the military go-to place, aren't they? Let's
Well,
face it.
they are, but there's also divisions.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
my new position became military police, Army Special Intelligence assigned to the CIA. Because not only,
how did you make that jump?
well, because for one thing, they knew my background, they knew my father and my uncle. Okay. And
Yeah.
secondly, I was not, I didn't have a normal bringing up naturally. 7 kids in the family. My dad, when the VA closed, he took half his retirement and he bought me tractors, big mowing stuff and all the equipment. And I had a business, not like a normal kid, 12 years old, mowing all the plants, lawns, and the villages' parks. I'm serious. And then
Mm,
he bought another kid's business, and I had to hire kids, and we did estates, wealthy people and things like that. And then in the winter, in the fall, I
mm,
would cut Christmas trees. We would lease land, and I had a good business. There were 7 kids in the family. The VA didn't pay much for mom and dad. VA never paid that much. So I
yeah.
helped with the family, which was kind of rare. Now, before I realized this was going on with my future, there were some people who had summer homes in Tupper Lake. I'm not going to mention their names. But I was introduced at one of these uh, festivals in Timberlake, Woodman's Field Day, and then they had it was Friday, Saturday, and I think Friday and Saturday and Sunday they had these boat races on the adjacent lake, and ABC World of Sports was there. And so this guy, I won't mention his name, whose father was CIA, introduced me to some people who had summer homes up there. And this girl's brother, who he introduced me to the girl naturally, his brother was CIA. Okay, the family. In fact, there's a whole row of houses on the lake, and every one of them are CIA. So, in any event, this is what you call early grooming. And so that same person later on, my senior year, asked me to go. He got his doctorates at Penn State. But he says, we're going to go see mom and dad in New Jersey. Now, this is before I was in the military. And he said, Dad wants to talk to you. And he said, then we'll go, we'll spend a day or two and you can visit your relatives. And then we'll go pick up my stuff and we'll go back home. So I did. The only thing is, after I put my stuff in my room, he said, Dad wants to talk to you. And I said, where is he? He says, he's in the greenhouse. Hmm. So I go down to the greenhouse and I look around and I'm thinking, something's up here. I said, what are we doing in the greenhouse, sir? He had 3 orchids in front of him. He pushed them towards me. He said, Scott, if you can't cultivate plants, how do you expect to cultivate people? Then I understood what was going on. And so we had a nice long talk and everything. And then we had dinner. And the next day I went and visited my relatives. And the next day Terry and I went to Penn State. And then we went home. Me not
Okay,
knowing.
that's not grooming. That's not grooming. How did you make that jump from an MP to um, the position that you attained that they
Right.
asked you to attain? How did
Okay.
they do that? Because you're talking that you've had
Because.
a father who was
Yeah.
in the military.
Right.
You
Okay.
had
Because they knew something I didn't until my sister died 2 years ago. Before she died,
mm,
my older sister calls me and she said, Scott, well, she got 5 shots. So she said, you know that I'm dying. I said, yes. She said, but you always wanted to know why you thought mom and her sisters were squirrels. I did. And I said, yeah. I said, our grandpa was full Mohawk. I said he was a drunk. I thought
he was a
maybe
what? Sorry, he was a what?
they called him Sneaky Pete. He was a drunk. We called him a drunk, Sneaky Pete. You hide your liquor bottle in a
Okay,
in
yeah,
a.
yeah.
Okay, okay. So she said no. He was a drunk because mom came home pregnant, senior vacation, Easter. Mike Lorello is my real father. Now they
Mm,
knew this. So Mike Lorello was my contact in the mafia, #1 in North America. You understand how they do things behind your back and manipulate you to get you to use your relationship? Because they knew that I had helped my sister, saved her life, in fact. And she after her divorce, she got into drugs and alcohol and nearly killed her. But I interceded, and actually, with the help of my friends, the cops, they we had her committed to Ogdensburg, and she cleaned up and she became a good person. And she worked for 30 years for the state of New York, and then she retired and
okay,
moved to Orlando. Okay, so see, I didn't know this at the time, but they did, and so that's why they used me because they knew this man knew about me and my sister, and therefore there was no danger in me asking him or explaining to him basically what we didn't know how to solve. In other words, you have to dance with the devil to dance another day.
okay. Well, can I ask what year were you born in?
I was born November 10th, 1949, as a super preemie, less than 2 pounds. That's when the records show someone appeared, some sister perpetual retired from France, supposedly, who dragged the rocking chair into the nursery and for 3 months would not let anyone touch me. She even wet nursed me. But the point is, my great uncle was chief of staff. My parents finally couldn't take it anymore. They went to him and he forced her to leave, and I came home. But I'm lucky, as we found out later in QHHT, that she was what they call one of them. That's all I was told. So that's basically when the visits started. And growing up, I had these strange things happening that I just couldn't understand. I didn't want to discuss with anybody because if you said I saw a ship, they'd say, "Yeah, you're crazy." Not anymore.
Okay, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to do like bullet points, okay, with you.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you something specific, and let's see if we can do sort of like bullet points. Does that sound cool to you? Because I
Great.
think yeah, because you've got such a vast amount of experience that we can't cram it all into this show. Not one
Correct.
show. Can't do it. Yeah. So, when was your first experience of um extraterrestrials? ETs, let's call it that.
Okay. The first experience I thought was a dream. We were at Clarkson for the summer. Laura was writing another book for another one. We had beautiful housing, and her son, who I got into Clarkson in the 12th grade, a smart boy. Um, I got him jobs in the winter in the arena, and then in the summer he worked in the construction crew. So we all housed together in this condo, his future wife. One night, I woke up screaming at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So the kids ran in the room. Laura was all upset. She goes, "Well, what happened?" I said, "I had a nightmare." "Well, you woke us up. You're going to tell us what's about." I said, "I don't want to." They said, "You better, Dad." I said, "Okay." So my nightmare was this. Excuse the language. I dreamt that I got anally raped by three Wookiees in surgical gear. They said, "What?" I said, I explained to them. I said they were laughing at me, but they were like shaven Wookiees, and they had glasses on, they had a hat, surgical gear on, masks, and the guy in the center is holding this silver rod, oblong rod, and they were laughing at me. So I thought it was a nightmare dream. "Yeah, you're crazy, Dad." "Yeah, it was a dream." 2 days later, I had to have surgery. Apparently, they pulled my hemorrhoids out because I fought them. But when they did the surgery,
Hmm.
they found precancerous cells in my rectum. They removed
Okay.
them. I've been clean ever since. That wasn't a dream. The next time that something happened, well, guess what? I had two cops with me out at the house out by the airport. We had to get out, at the end of the semester. And I discovered who was running the secret shoppers check scam. A
Mm.
student at Clarkson, his dad is St. Lawrence. Okay. So the whole point is we had a meeting about picking him up the next day. At about 2:45, we walk out of the house. We're on the front lawn. The airport's a quarter mile away. The big guy from the sheriff's department looks up and he says, "Oh my God, look at the sky. Everything seems so close." Well, when you see space being folded, we didn't know what it was at the time. You can't move. because it's such an incredible sight that you are dumbfounded. So finally, the guy from Potsdam PD behind us says, "What's the matter with the coyotes? They're running around whining. They don't talk like that." Now, we all lived in a country and we knew at full moon about coyotes. So
Mm.
I look up at the moon, point at the moon, and I say, "Hey, look it, guys. It's not a fourth, it's only a fourth quarter moon, but what's that planet doing next to the moon?" They look up and they go, "I don't know, but what's the matter with the coyotes?" I mean, serious. This is how dumbfounded you are at this sight. So in
Okay.
any event, they look at me and they say, "Hey, Varden, what? Something ain't right here. We're going. See you later." I said, "I don't give a shit. Go." I go in the house. They leave. I turn the outside lights off. I come out, standing next to the corner of the house, looking up the sky. All of a sudden, the flash went off. Star of Bethlehem, by the way. And this beautiful red crystal starship, which I thought you had the pictures of, pops out of the wormhole. Next thing
Yeah,
you
I can
know,
bring those up. I can bring those up. Hold on, I'll bring
okay,
those up. Let's have a
I'm
look. Okay.
I'm floating. I'm floating thousands of feet on the side of the ship, studying the device that stops time. There's only one extra device outside the ship. It's on the right side. Next thing I know, I'm going towards the inside of the ship, and then I don't remember anything. The next thing I know, I'm outside the ship in the front looking down at the empty captain seat. The next thing I know, I'm standing right back to where I was, and the ship moves a little bit to the left and parks. So here I am,
Okay.
totally
Right.
confused.
Can I sort of stop you there? Hang on, just 1 minute. One
Yep.
minute. 1 minute. Right. Okay. Just stop you there. Right. And now, have I got the pictures? Because you sent pictures which are like screenshots from your phone.
Right.
So is that what we're talking about? That light there?
No, no, that's what it looks like. It's an angel. But
Okay.
Let's go to the red one.
The red one. Let me have a look. Hang on, because you sent them in no particular order, and I was
Okay,
trying
there,
to
there,
go through.
there it is, right there.
This one.
There you
This
go.
one.
And what does it
This.
read? What it says there.
Hi, Scott. I just saw your interview with Jeff Mara. This interview did clear up some questions I always had about things. I hope you accept my phone request. I would like to reach out to you later. Best wishes. Okay, right. I'm not sure who that's from, but that's fine. That's good. There's some things that you sent. I'm trying to get here we go. I've got it. Right, this here.
Hmm.
Is that what you're talking about?
There it is, right there. Now
Right.
this. Now get this. This was a little bit later after they came 3 times in the fall, and then when I started working with our government about the gifts that they gave me, this thing came back. I asked it to come back. This was taken by one of our Space Force crafts, but
Mm,
it pulled up. This was taken. I have the documents and those things by the ISS or the other side because the right side we can't see is the part that has the device that stops time, and they were showing the crew on the ISS what I described earlier.
right.
Okay.
So, right. Okay. And this was when you were working for what military body? What arm of the military were you working for?
Basically, Army Special Intelligence assigned to the CIA because what I didn't tell you is my boss before the Olympics called me in and said, "We just found out that the state police were in charge of the security for the Olympics, Scott. After Munich, it's not acceptable. You're going to get a degree in physical security and safety. We'll send you home. We want you to get a MBA, MAS, analysis design and computer systems at Clarkson, which they paid for. And Scott will give you money for grants. And you're responsible for analyzing the state police's security plan.
Mm,
Your old friend John Wing, he went to West Point. You didn't. We both had nominations. He said he's building the 765 kV line. That needs analysis because, Scott, if that gets knocked down, power goes off all the way to the Mississippi. And we're going to
mm,
move the 10th Mountain Division into Fort Drum. So you're going to have to develop programs to basically educate your law enforcement of what they're going to be faced with 65,000 new people moving in.
Okay, who were
So,
you report? Who did you have to report to? Who was your immediate senior to report to?
well, after I left there,
No, no, no. While you were still working on that in that department.
oh, Leonard Chernosky, 39-year veteran of CIA, started with OSS.
Okay, lovely. Right. Thank you for that. There's a few things on there that you sent which I couldn't quite understand. Let's have a look. Not that. Right. We have some messages that you sent. I think they're from alien messages. Um, it's I can read it best from my phone. It says, "Note from Santilli. There are some of these are some of the handwritten notes and updates found on the book of Alien Races page. There are literally hundreds of them, about 3 or 4 each page on each page. We chose the ones that we deemed more relevant. And I quote, as Napoleon, Alexander, and Hitler did, so will the rest. Another one, how blind are people that they cannot see what's in the Grand Canyon? We've got another one, but I'm not sure. Are these from messages from alien?
Yes, sir, they have. Now, let me explain. Okay, in 1935, these same beings came. Okay, they visited what is now Croatia. It was controlled by the Russians.
Mm,
There was a 12-year-old named Egon Majejevic. He got the gift of colloidal particle attachment. He went to Oxford, to Princeton, and then he shows up at my university at Clarkson when I was undergraduate, when NASA paid for the $85 million Center for Advanced Material Processing. I knew him for a couple reasons, not just school, but through family. My wife's aunt, whose husband was BCI, who I had worked with, was one of his secretaries, but she was his niece. The other one, secretary, was Judy Metcalf.
mm.
Uh, Bob Metcalf, our Troop B rotor pilot, who was away with two of my other friends, all New York Air National Guard, in '87, who flew the cocaine into Mina.
Okay, right.
That then
Scott.
Jim Comey was laundering that money.
Okay,
This
that's
is
great.
official
That's great.
records.
But we're talking about aliens here. I understand the story. I get that. I get it, and I get that
Okay,
it
good.
goes deeper. But I'm going to try and keep to this if we can.
Okay.
How did your team or how did we get these messages? Where in what form did they arrive to you?
Uh, Another agent from Interpol knew that these two guys, the nephew and this helper, were helping clean up his uncle's, who was a what do you call it, a Russian spy, I think in Portugal then. After the Soviet Union fell apart, they left everybody in the cold. So this guy was old, he needed help, he didn't have any money. So the kids go in to help him clean up, and they found this book. Okay? They needed money. So one of my friends offered them money and then sent me the original copy. That's how I got my
Okay,
hands on it.
I got you. Thank you. Okay, so this is from a book written by a in possession of a Russian agent. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Right. They're open-ended questions, really. Why do Australian humans do not see September 23rd? Have you gone into any detail about any of these? Did your team go into any detail about what it could possibly mean? It's got here Caravaggio has it. Caravaggio, as I understand, is an Italian artist.
Yeah, that's a painting of something. Now,
Okay.
now you got
The
to
Pope
remember,
and Castro met again last week
right?
with Mater.
Right. That's a race that's not very nice. And as you read throughout the book, they said they live on Mars underground, and if you go to Mars, they will come to you. You don't want them coming to you.
Okay.
Now, now,
Uh,
now, when you look at who they met with, and you know the truth about the Catholic Church, about Castro, about these other people, you wonder why they did the things that they did. Because apparently they are also interdimensional beings, and they can have an effect on a human soul.
okay.
That's
This is interesting, Scott. This is
yeah.
interesting. It said at the title at the top, the banner, she, SHE, the message. I'll quote. Ever since humans and aliens started cohabiting Earth, the main question humans wanted answered was who created the universe and all of us? I'll just check you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. The question has been answered the same exact way by all the alien races that have spoken about it. The question, the answer to the question, sorry, has been sent several times by two different races to some human political leaders throughout the centuries. As far as we know, the last of those leaders to get the message was US President JFK in October the 3rd, 1963. The message was sent by two races. The message is both simple and complex, informative but raising questions of hope, but also of warning. Now, my question to you is, uh, did you or your team, do you know, does your team know any more into that in reference to JFK and in reference to, because it's quite cryptic, it's cryptically written with no defining answer or probability of answer. It's
Okay.
open
Well,
ended.
okay. I have the rest of the documents. I can tell what it says. She is the message. She is the source. Think of her as the goddess Diana in Greek mythology. All life on Earth or the universe comes from either a biological engineered being or some type of a female organ. That's what the message ends up saying. So
Okay.
basically, okay, so basically, when you take the version of the churches about the he God, all
Um,
religions, as the book goes on, all religions were given to us by interdimensional reptilians to keep us separated. Whose God is better? There's only one God. How can your God be better than mine or my God be better than yours? Secondly, we are all we all are immortal spiritual beings, a spark of the source. There is no such thing as death. Now
okay.
they prove this to me and to Laura by taking us up both physically and then taking us up with their light technology ethereally. So when you're up there physically, you're talking to them, mainly telepathy wise. You could see your hands, your feet, and your body.
Hmm.
Then they'll send you back and bring you back, except you can feel them, you can hear them, you can communicate with them telepathy, but you can't see a part of your body, which proves that you are a soul, an immortal spiritual being. Those
Okay.
pictures
How
that
did
you
that?
asked,
Yeah, but you said that they physically take you up. So how did they take you up physically?
some type of light technology. You could be laying in bed, they'll take you right up through three roofs. I think it's like Star Trek, where they beam you up, beam you down, where they dematerialize your bodies and reassemble your body. That's the only thing I can see. I mean, they didn't teach me that technology. What they
No, sure.
taught me, yeah, no, what they taught me, which we need to do, they taught me how to fold the fabric of space using the Mandelbrot set torsion effect controlled by boron particles by projecting plasma, what we call the Spire Bethlehem. Okay, they also taught me how to build the device that stops time and what it's made out of.
Right.
And
Okay. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Um, it's interesting you mentioned made of boron. I'll get back to that in a little bit. Right. Okay. So there's another little thing I want to bring up. Right. Final thoughts. The future of the human race, this I'm quoting this, is not in our hands at this time, at this point in time. One day it might be. All that we real humans can do right now is to gather all the information we can about these alien races and their habitats or habits, sorry, to find out about their weaknesses and strengths so that when our future becomes our responsibility, we can be prepared to fight for it if needed. Today, we are just mere spectators watching a theatre play. Some of us are watching the play completely unaware that what we are watching is real. The actors, in brackets, aliens, are real. The play, in brackets, storyline, is real. The stage and the props, in brackets, alien worlds, alien ships, and odd cosmic events, end of brackets, are real. Others know that what they are watching is real, but there's nothing that they can do about it. They cannot change the play. And certainly they cannot go to another theatre where the play is more to their liking, of their liking, sorry. The only thing they can do is watch. Others, in brackets, like you, me, your companion, agents, and a few more worldwide, end of brackets, are spectators, taking notes about what is in front of them, about the play, about the actors, and about the setting and props. We are already we are learning about and writing about everything we see, so that one day when we have an it didn't finish there, but what I wanted to get at with this, what I found interesting about this part is this part here. But right, all that we real humans can do right now is gather all the information we can about these alien races and their habits to find out about their weaknesses and strengths, so that when our future becomes our responsibility, we can be prepared to fight for it if needed. So where does that come from? Why should we be prepared to fight with these? What are we fighting against?
okay, well, for one thing, we think we own this planet. Yes, the Anunnaki did genetically engineer us, and they made a mistake when they did it. You're not supposed to be able to travel interstellar. The rule is, just like Star Trek, non-interference. In other words, you can observe, but you're not supposed to interfere in the development of whatever was seeded on that planet. Okay? So basically, they violated the rule. And so the product, I guess we could see right now between what we're doing around the world, the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel and Iran, our bad relations with China, all these false flag things, 9/11, false flag. Why? For one thing, control over the people, GSA and everything to start with. Secondly, where'd we go? Iraq. They didn't have any nuclear weapons. What we were after is what our scumbag call, cabal controlled military back then. They didn't know what they're doing. gold, oil, but mainly those clay tablets.
Right.
Some of those,
Okay.
yeah.
What clay tablets?
Well, there was a museum where I think we stole over 300,000 of them. We have these laser readers. I worked on some of those facilities. Okay, once you have their alphabet, which Sitchin and the rest of the guys helped, you program your computer with the laser reader. The laser reader reads them fast, and it tells the story, true story of our creation, of humanity, and of the inbound binary system every 3,600 years.
Okay.
It's
This
in,
laser
it's
reader, the laser reader reads it. I get that. The laser reader reads it. That's fine. But the translation needed, what language was that in on those clay tablets? Do you remember?
Well, it was a Sumerian clay tablets, but it's whatever their alphabet, whatever they called it. But the
Okay.
thing is that with Sitchin and other people's work, they figured out what these symbols meant. So they programmed the computer when
Hmm.
this is recognized, this is what it means.
Hmm.
So basically, we sent out the Pioneer probe to really look to see if this is true, and it is. The system's inbound.
Hmm.
The earthquakes and the volcanoes, like Velikovsky says, okay? But the beauty of what he said proves that they saved us in the past before because their villages are still intact on the West Coast. I've been there. And
Okay.
why?
Yeah.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute, wait a minute.
th-
Wait, you got to hear this.
Yeah. Hmm.
Here's why did they put totem poles around their villages? According to Velikovsky, who has their legends, they saw the skies come close to Earth. Therefore, in case it happens again, so their villages wouldn't get crushed, they installed totem poles around their villages to hold the sky up again. Now, that is
Hmm.
genius in a way, but it also left us with a point in history that still exists that proves in the past a race of humans witnessed space being folded. Yet,
How is it? How does totem poles? Now you're saying now totem poles. I understand are basically uh if you like, they're sigils. There is no written language in the Native American language. There's no written language handed down. It's all word of mouth handed down. But with totem poles, they're effigies, images, almost like cave art, and they're also as a protection for any village. They're used as a protection. But what you're saying is they're used to support because that somebody back years ago saw the sky collapsing and they used those as a support to save themselves.
I mean, it's
Like,
genius, but the thing is, you're right. What they were carved with were these things that look kind of alien and strange
mm,
because in history, when this happens, these beings appear. What did the Hopis say? What saved them? The ant people brought them underground.
mm,
Now, now, why did we take that long trip? Well, for a lot of reasons, but we ended up spending 3 weeks with the Hopis. I met with the Indian agent. He arranged for us to be met by their female leader. She did. She approached us at this, like a, it wasn't a convenience store, but it was a place where you could get stuff. And she approached Laura and I, and she said, ma'am, sir, she goes, I was told that you have a message for us. And I said, yes, I do, ma'am. She goes, what is it? I was told to tell you that they're back. So she says, well, that explains things. I said, what do you mean? The lights are back. I said, you mean the colored orbs? Yes. So she said, thank you. The day after that, we went back to Phoenix for a
Mm.
while to stay with her parents in Litchfield Park. Then her daughter flew in, and then we went not up there, but we went back to the Grand Canyon where she wanted to visit. And you want to know what's in the Grand Canyon?
Well,
Why
we
you
read that
can't?
message, didn't we? We read the message about the Grand Canyon. It's in the Grand
Yeah,
Canyon. Yeah, what is it? What's in there?
the Grand Canyon is a plasma strike. But what is left is basically Anunnakis. We're over here mining gold after the Great Flood. Because you can see in their records where they say that when they returned to Earth from space, they could see gold laying all over the place. Because when you have a massive tsunami, it's going to wash the bigger pieces out of wherever they did, and it ends up because it's heavy on top. And that's what they saw. So after they started reestablishing their presence on Earth in South America and in North America, especially because of the Rockies and the Sierras and the area where the Grand Canyon is, if you go there, you will see actually there are structures, but they are all torn down or damaged because they got punished for doing what they weren't supposed to do, and that's to mess with a developing species. And the same
Okay.
thing with Mars. Same thing with Mars. Okay? That Great Valley and then that
Mm,
mountain, that big one,
mm,
that's what you call the outflow channel of a plasma strike.
okay.
So basically, what you saw as Star Wars is the Death Star
Mm,
can be used to terraform a planet.
mm,
It can be used to cause a flood, but it also can be used to basically wipe out your civilization for violating the rules of the universe.
okay.
So that's what they told
Can I,
me.
Scott, can I ask you something? When you went to see the Hopi and ask them these questions, and you went to the Grand Canyon, in in what in what career capacity were you then? Were you a private investigator, or were you still attached to the military on behalf of the military, finding out? What I'm trying to ascertain is, was it military backed from the point of view of they wanted to find out and using you to go in as an investigator?
Um, we were followed on for the months of our trip by a special team, which I know exists. Okay, so when we got to the Grand Canyon, we pulled in, right across from the airport. There's a camping site, and so when we got there, I knew they were following us, and so we had our vehicle suburban all set up. We didn't have the animals then, and so I went to the edge of the road, and they drove by, and the guy tooted and waved. In other words, okay, Scott, you're smart. You knew we were following you. That night,
Hmm.
Laura and I were taken up together.
Taken
Okay.
up what? Explain. Taken up by. Seem to have lost Scott. Hang on.
Agent calling me. I just dropped him. So that's to be expected.
Right. Okay. So,
Yeah.
do you know? Have you got any idea who the team were? Who were these team? Were they
No, no,
military?
no, no. Listen. I lost my because of that stupid person calling me. I lost my earphone, so I'm gonna have to. I don't want to do it. I'll shut them back off. Um,
Okay. No worries. No worries.
there we go. Now I can. Now we can talk here. Okay. So since then, yes. Every once in a while, one of them will walk up to me somewhere, farmer's market. So it happened yesterday downtown when I was walking the dogs early in the morning. And they will give me a message, who to contact or what to do. That's the way it works. Um, once you work for an organization like that and you have contacts and you've been a good producer,
Mm.
they never let you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
but Scott,
it's like the mafia. You join, and when you're done, they either kill you because you screwed up or you die. But once you take that oath, whatever it is, like me was to the Constitution and to the company, you keep it. At least in my case,
yeah,
every
but
time they
Scott,
come,
you're asked, so you're still asked or given uh, to this day, and God bless you. You must be in your 70s now. Am I right?
75,
Okay, 75. Right. Now most people are putting on their slippers, watching daytime TV with a cake and a cup of tea.
right?
But you go to a farmer's market and you have a a military representative who I guess is not in military attire. I guess he's in civvies, and he comes up and he says to you, "Okay, Scott, I would like you
Yeah.
to meet X. I would
Someone
like you
keeps
to go
on
to X."
interfering, and they're not going to win. So I can't hear you right now. Let me get you back out there. Let's see if I can get you back up.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
No, no, you sound like you're in a
I
tin
can't hear
can.
you, sir.
Okay, I can't hear you. I'm gonna end the recording and start again, okay?
They try to interfere in my life because if they don't get this settled real quick, the indictments are going to come down these people. Our governor, when she found out what I proved to the AG, walked into headquarters and basically cleaned house.
Okay,
So the
explain what the AG is, because there's people out there that won't know what AG.
New York State Attorney General, Letitia
Okay,
James,
right.
she's got
Thank
her
you.
own problems. But the whole problem is after this was all proven by the federal team that I worked with out of the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Southern District, they called me and thanked me for everything, and they asked me, "Why did you put up with this so long?" I said, "Because timing is everything."
Mm.
The problem is, I agreed to allow the new people to clean up their own house, and because these other things, which I can't discuss, that we found out some of these bad people with a badge were doing, is taking a little bit longer. But they reached their time limit this week. So now they're
Okay,
scrambling to try to amend things. Well,
okay,
yeah, okay,
right,
so let's get back on our ETs.
okay, right.
So,
Now I'm gonna
so,
bring something. I'm gonna bring something up. It's a map.
right,
Okay. Now what? Can you see that map, Scott?
I sure can. I worked on it.
Oh, you worked on it, did you?
Yeah, I got every map of the world.
Okay, right. What are we looking at there?
We're looking at what would happen if we had a physical pole shift. That's why
Okay.
that's why I'm in the Green Mountains of Vermont. Okay? Now, there are certain things that sit on the Canadian shield. And for some reason, the study determined that if we do have a pole shift, this area will rise straight up 7 to 900 feet. You can see what's
Okay.
going to happen to the West Coast. Even Edgar Casey said this. First goes Etna, which it has, then
Mhm.
goes Pele and Martinique. After Pele goes, you have 95 days to evacuate the West Coast because the West Coast is going to be toast. Those are his words.
Okay. I'm gonna pause it there. Okay.
You see
Right.
that
So
island?
so
You see that island off the coast?
to the right hand side. where
Yeah.
Florida is.
Okay, there's something underground in that island that we need.
Okay, right. Do you know what that is underground?
I sure do. They showed me everything about it. It started
Uh,
when
hold
I.
on, hold on. I'm going to pause it again. I'll go. Okay,
Okay,
right.
so the path on this on these passive visits, they took me up alone one night. This beautiful ship. I was greeted by what I saw was an ancient Yoda. It was an older man that I've never seen a face so old in my life, with a brown hood on. And he took me by the hand. He brought me into this big room where the light was provided by, it looked like the walls were white quartz or something.
Mm,
It looked like a stainless steel table around with two chairs. He pulled out my chair, sat me down. He went on the other side. He removed his hood, and I was speechless. I have never, ever seen anything as old as what his face looked like to me. Just then, a male and a female. A male was carrying a tray with some things on it. They had white uniforms on. They looked just like you and I. She came over to this gentleman, rolled up his left sleeve, took some cotton or whatever off the tray, and wiped this fluid on his arm. She took a
mm.
vial and a syringe, and she drew up a certain amount. She injected it into this ancient being. And before my eyes, within less than a minute, he turned into a young, handsome man. And then they
Mm.
told me, this is what your wife, if you look, Google Dr. Laura Varden, she's already on the path, is going to discover underground in that island. It's called the
Okay,
Tree of Life. It's called the Tree of Life.
okay,
Okay? Now remember, you can't travel 13.2 billion light years in 5 minutes without aging, even though you stop time. So the people who go on this craft around the universes need to take this injection to get their age back from traveling like that fast.
okay. So are we talking the people that use the craft and travel, um, let's say, the nearly the speed of light?
No, no, much faster than the speed of light because that's not involved. Take your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, they come from these fingertips, 13.2 billion light years away.
Yeah.
Okay, the star Bethlehem is by our moon,
Mhm.
directly over where I was.
Yeah.
They project plasma, it goes, choop, okay? Okay, so now the ship's directly overhead. They shut off the juice, boom. Now they're here, like that. Now
Right, but do you
our government knows this, so
right. I had I've got to ask this question, Scott, right? And it's, by folding space-time will take an awful lot of energy. Where are they getting that energy from? To even attempt to fold space-time, uh for a craft to do that will take an awful lot of energy. Where the hell are they getting that from? And what source is the energy?
it's plasma. Um, how they how they create plasma, all I know is after maybe a year of visits, Princeton Plasma Lab got a hold of me, and I got their correspondence. Scott, we can keep the plasma beam straight by surrounding it with boron particles. What is the next move? Okay, So how they create plasma? Well, lightning is plasma.
Mm,
Okay, but how they create it in such a source? Obviously, Princeton Plasma Lab knows. It's a government lab, and there's the Mandelbrot set math because what? Our math brains come from Princeton. So,
mm,
so however they create it, we obviously are using it as a weapon right now. Because if you need a beam to
okay.
go straight, you're headed back in the same direction that we shouldn't be headed, weaponizing everything. That is in their documents. We give you gifts and you weaponize it. Atomic energy
Mm,
was supposed to be energy, not bombs to kill people. Look where we are
right.
now in the world.
Yeah, sure.
That is
Okay.
why they said 217 to 222 is the beginning of the end, unless you get back on the purpose of the path of life. Basically, to be in service to others.
Okay.
Because you understand that concept.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost biblical, a biblical concept, really. Be good to your fellow man. And
And, and what?
humble
Okay, not
before
to blow
God.
your
Is
mind.
that
Not to blow
humble
your mind.
before? Yeah, but is
Okay.
that what we're talking? Is that what we're talking about? Is that when I
Yes,
say
sir, we are. We're talking about end times. We got a choice. Okay? They may fold this for the last time. We've got to take these gifts and use them properly. So the next time it comes through, we can take care of ourselves. But we are invited, if we do the right things, to join the council. That was the whole point of the gifts. It's almost like a bribe and a threat at the same time because
okay,
the system's inbound, and we're worried. The government's worried. I can't tell
okay?
you who's involved in everything, but we're cleaning up the garbage.
I'll pause it there. Just so
A lot, plus these other things. Someone in our group makes sure that I get fed what I need because I don't have the time to constantly research day and night. But the thing is, it's not just me. Okay, I'll tell you. 4 hours after the ship left, Laura's making breakfast. I'm getting set up to work with my guys
mm.
on the pickup, and I get a request for a Zoom conference with two Israeli agents, a male and female, out in LA. So naturally, I accept it
Why Israeli? Why do you think Israeli? That's
because
the second
I'll
time
tell
you
you why.
mentioned.
It's a simple thing. There's a thing called the skip code in the original Torah, which basically can tell you anything that's ever happened or will happen. I found out about it because someone sent it to me from Israel, but it does exist, which means they knew who was being visited that night. Now, I told you who saved my life.
What's a
They
skip
call
code? What's a skip code? What is it?
well, it's a skip code. It's like a mathematical code that you plug in. And in this code, you could put like your name or my name in the
Mm.
code, and it would tell you everything that ever happened with you and I, or whatever will happen with whoever is the code.
And it's a computer code.
Well, I assume, yeah, I had to. But how they developed it, I have no idea. I thought it was because of those Dead Sea Scrolls that they found that are in the most secure facility in the world in Israel. I thought maybe they got no. This is what they told me. So
Mm.
basically, they were calling in their favor, and I said to them, "I'm honest. You did save my life. However, I got three cases, and I am going nowhere until they're done." He said, "What are they, Scott?" He knew. Gardner Museum, Colin and Karen. He said, okay, Scott. He said, we know you're honorable. I said, yes, right. He said, I got to go. She's got a list for you. I assumed it was photographs. No, list of 150 enlightened people, my name on the top with 3 stars. Everybody else got 1 star. So I said to Laura, what the F is this?
Mm.
She grabbed her laptop. She came over. She typed it in. She said, look at this, Scott. I said, that's got to be a joke. She said, I don't know, but what happened to your head? I said, what are you talking about? She said, you were picking at your head. I said, no, I wasn't, dear. She goes, what's this? She pushed right here.
Mm.
It was like a light switch going off. They injected monatomic gold and 2 other elements, which I can't reveal. That's what gave me what they call the sight, described in the Hopi
Yeah.
legend of the blue kachina in the sight. 3 years to 14 before the red and blue kachina from our planet returned to Earth. Remember what it said, 217?
Mm.
They come to
I mean,
Earth.
monatomic gold. We can eat You can buy monatomic gold. You can buy it off Amazon. You can buy it.
Why do you think they carried those little purses and they lived 500,000 years? Yet, when they got home to put it in their atmosphere, they realized they were breathing it in.
Mm.
Their health's changed. Their brains changed.
Mm. There is meant to give. Monatomic gold is proven, has been proven to help with certain ailments and generally with people's health. It helps. Um, it's one of these uh, strange things that you wouldn't think ingesting it or taking it internally would, but yeah, it does.
Same thing with
Um,
cardio but not as effective.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're quite right. Yeah. But the gentlemen that came to see you, were they these gentlemen?
No, that guy in the top, the guy in the bottom are brothers. My son brought my daughter to work for him in Boston
Hmm.
at Pledge Munich World Headquarters. After 3 months, she quit. He pissed her off. He called me to call her. I did. Here's her exact words. Dad, I met a guy. We fell in love. We're getting married. I said, well, that's nice. Why did you leave that job? Dad, I'm 20 years old. Jace got me sitting down with all the rock stars in the world. I'm very uncomfortable. You know what that means. I said, okay, I understand, babe. You're too young. What are you going to do? Well, my fiance is a superior court officer. And he owns this bar and restaurant called Jocko's at 450 Moody Street. I'm going to run that while he works. Really? Superior court officer? I can't wait to meet him. What's his name? Jonathan O'Connor, whose grandpa was Little John, whose older uncle, not in the picture, tried to kill me 3 times. At the wedding, the day after, at the bar and restaurant, where her father-in-law heard the drunk security guard whining about no security at the Garden Museum. Yeah, took me a few years to find a wanted poster to match. Did I send you the picture from the wedding when they're standing together? The 2 men standing together that matched the wanted poster? Yeah, I did. That's how I solved it. Took me a few years to find a wanted poster. I turned the case in to someone because I didn't want a thing to do with it with my daughter. He turned it in to the FBI in Syracuse, who sent it to Comey, who called me late at night and said, Scott, what do you want? I don't like him. Like I said, he was laundering the money that 3 of my best friends, so why should I trust him? So I said, you got to raise the reward to 10 million. He goes, why? Inflation. That was 1990 money. You want the painting zone? You know I can do it. What else, Varden? This is the first meeting. I said, you have permission to go to your Newark office when Vic Campy was sacked. There are 8 sealed files that you can look into. Review them and then call me. 2:30 the next morning, he calls me. He says, Scott, I can't believe he did all that. I said, Jim, they're your files. They're sealed. They better stay that way. I'm still alive. What are you going to do? I got a meeting arranged with him on Friday night. Okay, I'll fly up. I said, we're not coming home till Monday. I'll fly up and see you. The only
Right.
problem is we
Uh,
didn't
uh,
take the Suburban. We
okay.
rented
Right.
we rented a Prius. There was a bomb underneath the Prius. I'm not an
Okay.
idiot. Okay?
Okay.
What he saw in those files, sir,
Mm.
it was meant to tell him, you have no idea the problem.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, okay. So good.
Oh, okay. Right. That's good. Are you okay to continue?
Yeah?
Okay. All right. All right then. That's good. So, right. When you were on the ship, what did it look like
Well,
inside?
it depends what ship, but all I can tell you is that there's no lighting like we have lighting. Okay? Whatever the light comes from, it comes from the material on the walls of the ships. Basically, every and each time. I mean, they have compartments and doors. They have like a main control center, and but all the metals look almost like stainless steel, but I don't think they are. Okay, but there's that same color. That's my experience and Laura's. Um,
Okay. The aliens. What did these aliens, these entities, when you met them? Um, how many species have you met?
well, all I can tell you is every one that I met looked like you and I. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't make you think they look to you and I to make you more comfortable, but that is what our experiences were. Okay?
Do you think that experience is because that is something that they put into your mind to make it more palatable? That they didn't
All I
look like you. They didn't look like you or I at all. They didn't look like us. They looked alien, but in your mind's eye, to make it more palatable, to make it less frightening, less scary, you your cognitive ability was marred, and you saw them as being human. Do you think that was the case?
no, because that first time that visit, they looked like shaven Wookiees. Okay? But all the rest of them looked just like you and I. Some of them blonde Palladians, gorgeous. Some of them that look just like you and I, and just now I can't guarantee that they don't have the mind power to make me think that, but that is what I witnessed. And here's another thing:
Hmm.
both with Laura and I, never once were we afraid. Never once. It's almost like I knew you all my life, and here's the reasons why.
Okay.
I had a QHHT with Diane Morrison, number one for what's her name, Dolores Cannon.
Mm.
After our daughter brought us that book, Three Ways of Volunteers in a New Earth, the first thing I was shown was an eagle. I was Enki, our creator. I screwed up. I had to incarnate 100 times in different forms. Jesus, the guys out in the east there, the yoga or whatever his name was. And we finally have made the corrections. We know what the genetic code is. And we were given a choice. We either take the gifts, act right, straighten up, get back on the purpose of path of life, or whoever meets the code, like Dolores Cannon says, there is a 5D Earth already created. Either the consciousness of the planet, 8% plus one, is raised and we automatically go into 5D, or the awakened, you, me, Laura,
Mm.
will go to 5D. The rest will be like what? HBO series, The Leftovers, just like she
Mm.
says. Okay? There will be left behinds. Okay, what she
Okay.
says in her book, they will think they died the most horrible deaths. They will wake up on a hospital planet, and when and only when their souls are rehabilitated will they join us on 5D. Now
Okay.
that's in the book.
But you mentioned about your sounds going again. Hang on. It's just okay.
I had a package delivered of my supplements. I wouldn't be here
Okay.
today. I wouldn't be here today if my wife wouldn't have analyzed my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
She's the world's expert on this, and put me on. What can I say? This is the new box. This is what I take daily,
Wow. Okay.
and
Wow.
I'm 75 years old. At a minimum, I walk 5 miles a day. I still am able to climb mountains. So
Well, that's good.
basically, yeah,
That's really good.
yeah, she's 55. So, but she's a brilliant, brilliant woman, and that's why we had to be together. So she got the gift that
Mm. Oh, you're a
is
lucky man. You're a lucky, lucky man.
well so
You
far,
really
but
are.
yeah.
Yeah, you're a lucky man. Scott, I'm going to start winding it up now. I'm going to ask you what do you know? There's been talk about these towers that have been seen on the moon being soul collectors. Do you think? What's your view on it?
Well, all I know is what you just said. I've had no experience with it because, as you're going to find out, as the government knows and the Jews knew, because that's where they got a hold of me, I've returned to make a decision. Yeah, that ship is mine. The government knows this, and so far they've been trying to clean up the mess worldwide with other, I don't know, 22 other special military groups like I belong to. It's a small world, but it's there. People with morals in this field exist, believe it or not.
Mm. Yeah.
And the start of gathering was at that conference in Region One. The next group, I briefed 60. The first time I briefed that jump, 65 top from our space force because
Okay.
they thought it was an alien invasion. We cleared
Okay.
that up. We yeah, and so right after that meeting, sir,
Mm.
my friend, the PM, left and is still at Gitmo running trials. Yeah,
Okay. Right.
that's been since 215.
Okay.
That's how
Have
bad
you?
it is. Yep,
And when another thing I wanted to ask before I wrap up, do you know that within government, have you
I
met
lost
any
you
aliens? Have you met
because
any aliens?
it is the internet. Because every time I lose you, the bars drop to two.
Okay, right. Okay.
Okay, now I
Yeah.
got full bars.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Okay,
That
so
is
as
the
far
internet.
as those devices on the moon,
Yeah.
I have only heard what you've heard. It may be true, but I can't say it is true. Okay? All I
Okay.
know is the far side of the moon is occupied. The moon is hollow.
Okay.
As far as I was told, there are several, when I mean even millions, of what they call abductees that are living inside the moon. Americans or human beings.
Are they
That,
living there against their will, or are they quite happy there?
to be honest with you, I don't know. But what I was told is that they don't want to return to Earth.
Okay. Can you
You see that?
can, Can you tell us? Can you tell us or give us a clue how you know this?
Well, because when you have a visit, which for me, it occurred 2 weeks ago. Um, they tell you they tell you things, but I think they spoon feed you because giving you too much of this information about the truth, even though I'm the soul of what you call Christ, it doesn't make any difference in a human mind. It's difficult to deal with. I mean, this basically has been really hard on our marriage.
Mm.
I mean, you're in bed with your wife, all of a sudden you're gone. Or I'm in bed, or she's gone. You wonder, regardless of what your experiences are, you still, where are you? What do are you ever going to be back? I mean, these are things that you experience as a human. And I have the same fears and loves and dislikes as just about everybody else. But when this starts happening to your life, but not just yourself, but the other night, 2 weeks ago, they took me and the two dogs for the first time. And but this thing has been a strain, a tremendous strain on our marriage, and I don't blame her.
Mm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's difficult. And when I talk to other people, and I have a lot of friends that have been going through this, it's the same thing. I mean, the reality, like I'm being revealed the true reality, not what we've been taught to memorize or believe, but what the truth really is. Because the sight means I can access the Akashic records. I have levitated. I have every day. I mean, right now I'm looking at not other beings, but an energy signature in my room. I mean, all around me. Okay. I go outside. I look up. There's nothing but angels all around me. That green picture, that I have them in green and white. I've seen them in other colors. I've seen them in full form. I've seen them in certain robes
Mm. But you
with
understand
either.
how it seems, Scott, you understand how it seems to people who don't see that. It seems that for want of a better expression, completely bonkers.
That's right. However, that's what the photographs are for. My wife, she's going to be on another show with Aggie Nost with me. Um, you look at her credentials. Why would she lie?
Mm. Do you
A
think
doctor
I
times 10
I
with a world
agree, and
champion. Yeah.
I agree, and I think you're very brave. I think you're very brave coming forward doing this, and putting yourself up like this because you know full well that there'll be people out there ridiculing this, which I, to a certain degree, can't blame them because what you're talking about is really, I mean, I've been witness to myself to Dogman sightings,
Yeah.
um, which have been really strange, unworldly, something that you don't normally see. You don't normally
There
see
are
a
hundreds of
bipedal
us.
dog.
Right. So 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 we know the truth. And basically, with my work and everything, I've developed this attitude. I don't really give a shit anymore. The truth is
Mm,
the truth, and either you're an experiencer, which a lot of them. I have a lot of friends that are. Either you believe me or you don't. But
mm,
usually the ones who don't are the leftovers, the left behinds. If it
mm,
has to come to that, that's not
yeah.
my decision. But the point is, you're right. But the thing is, you got to reach the point where you got to stop caring about what other people think
Yeah,
because that
sure.
influences your life. And
Yeah.
we're all entitled to live our lives as long as we don't bring harm to others, we're all entitled to live our lives, period.
mm,
And that's why I have the respect I do, and I
mm.
have the protection I do, right from the very first, the very next morning where we lived across the river. I know for a fact, it was verified, there were three sniper teams that had to come out of drum that were there to protect me because other countries knew. I've been approached by the Russians, I've been approached by the Chinese, and I've been approached by the Israelis. Everybody wants a piece of the action. I took an oath to our Constitution and our country. Basically, every one of those other ones got put in their place.
Okay, why you? Why you? Why do they come to you? Why is it that you're getting these experiences and they can't gain the experiences themselves? All these countries like Israel, America, UK, everywhere else, they're coming to you, and what are they trying to get from you?
Well, I've been offered anything I want, but the thing is, what they want to do is just like I'm afraid some of our own people do. They want to be able to control the world with this product. They're not going to. I'll die before I allow that to happen. Okay,
I've
okay. The whole point is that's been our problem. Okay, money is the root of all evil, but power corrupts, corrupts totally. If you don't
mm,
have that moral background to stand up and say no, I was brought up by a first sergeant. He was rough, but at least he gave me the ability, being military and as loyal as he was, to understand that in order to be a good person, to be able to proceed in life, you
mm,
have to have a moral character. And as he always said, Scott, if you're going to do a job, do it right the first time or don't even bother trying to do it. In other words,
yes,
don't try to screw people. You're
mm,
hired and you're trained to do a job, do it. That's what you're paid for. Be an honest man.
okay, yeah, no, true, okay, no,
I'll
that's
get you.
that,
Hey, you want a funny story?
uh-huh,
The first weekend I came home on a 3-day pass. Laura and I and Jay stopped at mom and dad's, had lunch, went to Norwood where her parents were, about 45, 50 miles away. Okay? And I told mom and dad, I'll be back on Saturday. This is a Friday. I said, to spend the day with you. So my dad had a stroke, and so I come back Saturday. I'm sitting there talking to dad. Uncle Swede pulls in the driveway. I go, this is, I go out and I said, Swede, please don't tell dad that I'm with you guys now because I don't know how he's going to react. He said, okay. So we had a nice visit and we had dinner and then I went back. We go back on Monday. Tuesday morning, I get called. Report to the front gate. There's a problem. So I go to the front gate. There's a gray car there. 4 guys in it. I knew who they were. And there's a soldier on the other side with his rifle and two other ones and the sergeant. I said, what's the problem? He said, Scott, they won't show us their ID. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. So I go over the window, take out my pistol, tapped on the side of the window, puts the window down. I said, guys, don't play games. I said, cough up the IDs. Guy says, really? What are you going to do if we don't? I said, well, you see the last, there's a big sign there. See that last sentence? You cross this line without authorization, deadly forces are authorized. I said, you cross that line, I'll shoot you in the fucking head. The guy says in the back seat on the right, leans forward and he says, Swede said you say that, Scott. He said, thank you, you're a good man. He set me up. That was his joke. This is what you put up with these guys. You know, I, I, when Uncle Swede used to come up to the Lead Pond camp, That was all military. Okay?
Mm.
But when he showed up with a couple guys from the agency, all these other guys, these guys were hunters, but they were drinkers. And the truth comes out when they drink and they tell their war stories because that's the only way they can get through that pain.
Yeah.
Except when Uncle Swede and the guys were there, everybody shut their mouth and listened to these guys. Trust me.
Mm.
That and you know what? He uh, he knew he was part of the arrangement of where I was headed. There's no question about it. But the point is, the Rh negative was the key. When you were my age, you had a blood test. They pricked your heel. If you were Rh negative, they had so many hours to report that to the CIA. Ever since then, I had a handler, and I tell you why. I know. After the Jeff Marr show, where I talked about the 7 NDEs, he
Mm.
viewed it. He got back to me. He says, "Varden, you lying piece of shit." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Scott, you've had 30 NDEs. Go back and do your work." He was right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. Scott, I'm going to have to wrap it there. I just want to thank you very, very much for coming on. And if it's okay, we've only really just touched the surface. I'd like to have you on again, if that's okay, very soon.
it's up
Um,
to you. Part of my mission is to be a messenger. And the only
mm,
way, like I can send you more photographs and documents. And so people
okay.
have a choice. They can look at them, try to debunk them. They can't.
Mm,
Okay? Then they read those documents. That's not my writing.
yeah.
So
I-
I don't have any
If you
reason
could,
to lie to anybody.
if you can send me what documents you have, I can then prep that into the studio, and then we can have a chat, and I can bring those up, and we can have another in-depth discussion over because there's things I want to mention to you which I haven't had time to. That I think you will know some of the answers, a lot of the answers.
Mhm.
So for now, I just want to say thank you very, very much for coming on. I do
Mhm.
appreciate it, and God bless you.
Okay, one other thing I want to tell you. You know why I wear a beard?
Uh-huh. Why?
To save my face and my eye. This famous plastic surgeon took out
Okay.
took out my lower jaw, and you can't believe how many years this took to heal. In fact, I still have to have some broken teeth replaced, which is going to
Mm,
be done shortly. But that's why I wear a beard because of the scars. And
okay.
so thank you very much, and I will work on that this evening. And whenever you're ready, you said something about a Friday show you wanted to have
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll get you on.
It's
It's
up to
only
you.
it's a live, and it's gonna. I think it will be quite interesting if you can join us. That would be really good. There's a few things I want to ask you, and you may know, you may not know. It's about cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman, all those sort of things. I just want to ask you a few things about that. But we'll do that.
They're
Scott,
real.
thank you very, very much for coming on, and we shall talk very soon.
You're more than welcome. And if anybody has any questions, if I can answer them, I will. And if
Okay,
I
that's
can't,
good.
I'll tell you I can't.
Okay, if you can give me, send me some links to maybe your Facebook or maybe your YouTube, whatever you have. Send me those links. I'll put them in the description. People at home, you'll have those links, and please, by all means, he's a very interesting guy. Get in touch with him. He's a wealth of information. Trust me. Okay, Scott, thank you once again. God bless you.
God bless you too, and have a wonderful weekend or day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, that was amazing interview. That's only part one because as you have gathered, he's got a lot of information, and Very interesting guy. Um, Definitely want to have him on again. Definitely want to have him on again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you can hit that like button and the subscribe, that doesn't half help a lot. Just that thumbs up helps an awful lot to just push the channel a little bit. It's only a small channel, and it just helps me to know that I'm bringing content that is right for you, that you like. Um, but other than that, no, I shall say thank you and have a good day.